say, hey, I wanted to let you know I'm doing some healthy lifestyle things. I'm going to be monitoring my blood pressure, and just let them know. If I see someone's blood pressure consistently running below 120 systolic, then we're going to start. Usually cut one of the medicines in half. It's usually what we'll do first. A lot of the people that we see are on multiple medicines. And so we'll cut one of them in half. If blood pressure keeps coming down, we may stop that one altogether then, depending on what kind of class the drug is in, or maybe we cut a different one in half. So yeah, that's what we'll do. So we will taper the medicines down. And depending on the length of time the blood medicine stays in the system, some medicines will even have someone take every other day if we're really trying to taper very slowly. Most of the time that's not necessary. Okay, what about other questions tonight? Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with cholesterol medicine?
What about cholesterol medicine?
Yes. I was taking it and someone suggested I take a product called Solti. It is made from green tea.
Okay.
Do you know anything about it?
Well, there are compounds in green tea that have health-enhancing benefits, but there's also compounds in green tea that are not beneficial, at least from where I sit. One of those compounds is caffeine. So caffeine is a known pressor. It's a known thing that raises blood pressure. And there's a section in the book that talks about the effect of caffeine to raise blood pressure. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people look at these things, and actually, I think I even have the slide thrown here just a few slides ahead. So alcohol is bad for your blood pressure, if you were wondering. And then here's the caffeine. So this is from a review, and you can see some people, caffeine can raise their blood pressure as much as 15 points. What a lot of people say is, oh, but your body gets used to it. If you have caffeine every day, it won't raise it that much. And this researcher here, this was a couple decades ago, wrote this article. It seems like physicians still don't realize. And look at the title of it. Critical Review of Dietary Caffeine and Blood Pressure, a relationship that should be taken more seriously. So what was he telling doctors? You're not taking caffeine seriously enough. And what did he find? He found on average, the amount of caffeine that people are habitually taking in relatively low amounts raises their blood pressure about 4 points systolic and 2 points diastolic. And everyone looked like, what? 4 points? Who cares? I mean, I wouldn't even notice. Here's the thing. How many letters in no pressure? 10, right? 10 letters. Exercise may lower your blood pressure 3 points. Getting rid of the caffeine may lower it 4 points. Eating more plant foods maybe lower 4 or 5 points. All of these things are cumulative, you see? So any one of them may not look all that impressive. And that's why a lot of people, what I tell them is they change their lifestyle enough to inconvenience themselves, but not enough to see much of an effect. That's why we have this 30-day program. We say for 30 days, just try doing these simple things and see what difference it makes. But our challenge during the time I'm here is just a 10-day challenge. We're just asking you to do the first 10 days of the program. So that's what we're going to launch on Sunday. And like I said, if you want more information and the checklist and all, we'll be giving those out Friday evening. Okay, so bottom line to your question, if I had high cholesterol, that was my only concern, I would just eat a whole foods plant-based diet. Get rid of all those animal products, and we often see people's cholesterols go down dramatically, okay? Yeah. Okay, what about other questions? If you're having trouble sleeping. Okay. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of rest. What if you're a bad sleeper? Okay? What should you do? What can you do? Well, there's a number of things. The longest table in our book we have is on sleep hygiene. Now, I've got some good news for you. My wife is the business manager for Compass Health Consulting. That's the group that publishes our books. And she's not here tonight. So if after the lecture you go to the book, and be careful, don't just break the binding or anything, but go to the chapter on rest. At each of those 10 things, we have a chapter on them, and take a picture of the 3 pages of sleep hygiene things, natural things you can do to help you sleep better. Okay, and I won't tell her; just be our secret. Okay. So, but let me tell you a couple. One is people sleep better if they are on a regular exercise program. Get regular physical activity will help you sleep better. Another thing, for those that fall asleep easily but wake up early in the morning, one thing that can help you is get physical activity late in the day, around sundown. That helps to set your body clock, your brain clock, to better sleep through the night. If you have trouble falling asleep at night, the more important sunlight exposure time is early in the morning. Okay? That will help to set your body clock. So those are a couple of things that we talk about, but there's a whole bunch more there. What about other questions tonight? Okay, so the question is, what happens if your blood pressure is great when you wake up, but it's high later in the day? This is really a great question, because I recommend for people, like if they're trying to get off medicines or they're just trying to know what their blood pressure is doing, that you check your blood pressure 3 times a day. See what it is in the morning. See what it is in the afternoon. See what it is in the evening. Because sometimes what we'll find is blood pressure may be great at bedtime, but it may be really high in the morning for some people. Sometimes people are on medication that they take when they get up or with breakfast, and they just take it once a day. The medicine doesn't last for the 24 hours. They think, well, it's covering me all those 24 hours, and it's not. So sometimes we need to break the medicine up and take half in the evening, half in the morning. Sometimes we do that, or we do more of these lifestyle things so that they don't need so much medicine. So, yes, definitely check your blood pressure multiple times throughout the day. Now, some people say, yeah, my blood pressure runs high later in the day. But here's the other thing. We have a whole section in the book on how to correctly check your blood pressure. One of the mistakes that many people make is they say, oh, they're rushing around. Oh, no, Derose said I got to check my blood pressure 3 times. Let me quickly check this before I rush off to the store. No way, it's 150 over 100. Listen, if you're running around, it's going to elevate your blood pressure. Your blood pressure is supposed to go up with activity. I used to do a lot of stress tests, put patients on treadmills. If their blood pressure didn't go up, they had a heart problem. Okay? Your blood pressure is supposed to go up. So, what's the message? Sit down and relax for at least 5 minutes, and then check your blood pressure. There's a whole bunch of other things that can be done incorrectly. Once a health professional was talking with me and said, I read your book. I was checking my blood pressure wrong. My blood pressure was actually good, but I was getting these really high readings. What were they doing wrong? They were using one of these wrist things to check their blood pressure. They were checking it down here. You got to check it at your heart level. Okay? It's got to be at your heart level. Arm resting at your heart level. If it's not, further below your heart, gravity is going to add to the pressure reading. If you have your, if you're in the hospital and they're holding your arm up like this, your blood pressure is going to be lower. Okay. Other questions tonight?
So, I see a handful of doctors that have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I go to a surgeon, oncologist, anybody else, that my blood pressure is
Body is very responsive to your brain. And in fact, if I just tell you, as soon as this lecture finishes, the first one to run over to the table is going to get a special gift. And the minute, Pastor Edvin will dismiss us, he says, okay, I'm going to, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to dismiss you. They've actually shown that, they've shown it in athletes, just that when they're going 3, 2, their heart rate goes up, their blood pressure goes up. Why? It's preparing them for activity. So I'm just saying, it's just an illustration of how the brain affects some of these bodily parameters. So why it is, I mean, I tell patients, for me, what I look at, if we have a question, is I say, check your blood pressures at home, and you're getting them in plenty of other settings. You know your pressure's fine. And I would just say, hey, you know, it's going to be high here, and be surprised if it's not, you know. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. Question back here.
What do you think of those watches?
Okay. Yeah, so many of the devices are helpful. I mean, they're especially good for pulse. Blood pressure, what I always say with any blood pressure device, if you're relying on that, bring it with you to the medical office and have them compare the blood pressure reading on your device or on the cuff that you bring in with you, the one you're using at home. Have them compare it with their office blood pressure cuff, because sometimes they're way off, okay? And then you can know, wow, hey, this is not accurate. And like I said, remember, with the positioning of the device is going to affect the blood pressure too. So that's the other thing you have to remember.
Sometimes my wife said it up, my blood pressure was high when he was I told her, I said, no, that's not blood pressure. She took it again, it was higher. I said, no. So she went and did it manually. The whole time up there, then it was done.
Okay, yeah, there are some unusual situations where the devices may be inaccurate, and yeah, if there's a question, have someone do it. There are some tricky things with blood pressure where sometimes people can miss your blood pressure, actually how high it is. For the health professionals, it's called auscultatory gap, and what that means, some people have an unusual blood pressure where we'll hear it. Let's say their blood pressure is 220 over 100. And if we pump up the cuff to 240, when we get at 220, we'll start hearing it. But then maybe at 180, it goes away. And you don't hear anything. And it starts again at 160. So if someone only pumped the cuff up to 170, they'd say, oh, your pressure is 160. Well, it's really 220. You say, how do you know not to do that? The proper technique that to check blood pressure without missing that is you check the person's pulse as you're inflating the cuff, and you inflate the cuff until the pulse goes away. Then you know you've exceeded the systolic blood pressure number, okay? But how many times have you seen a doctor do that? Yeah, virtually never. Now, once we know what a person's pressure runs, we don't usually do that, but, and now I'm doing telemedicine, so I never do it, because I can't check blood pressure over the computer. I put my finger on their pulse. But I would routinely do that, especially if I had a question about someone's blood pressure. Well, listen, you guys have been a great group. It is just about 8 o'clock. I know the pastor of this host venue wants to dismiss you tonight, but I do want to remind you we have another lecture tomorrow night, and we call it the Methuselah Factor. It's going to talk about how your brain can work better, your body can work better, how you can live longer. If you think that's a lot to promise, it's all true. So come back if you're interested in that. Invite your friends. Friday night, who caught what's happening Friday night? We're having something that we're calling Revelations Resiliency Code. Do you actually have some cards that mention that? So he'll make sure each one of you gets at least one of these cards, if not two. Why would we even think of giving you 2 cards? Share it. I'm actually very excited about these meetings, and I'm excited to give out some money to people. So, so Pastor here will make sure you all get a couple of these. This is a formal invitation. Even if you're visually impaired, you should be able to read what this says. You are invited. Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor.